morning. We are conducting an experiment on analysis of mixture of two simple salts. This involves identification of two acid radicals and two basic radicals present in this mixture. Now this has been prepared by mixing two simple inorganic salts, and our aim is to determine the anions and cations present in this mixture. Now this involves three steps, that is preliminary examination, detection of acid radicals and detection of basic radicals. Now this actually is a part of 4th semester BSc of Bangalore Central University. Now we will start the analysis. Now first preliminary examination. Under the preliminary examination, what we do normally is first see the color. If it is white, it means that it does not contain some of the colored cations, like for example copper. If it is present, the mixture will be blue in color. If nickel is present, it will be green in color. Like that, you have some cations which give a color to the simple salt. That is under preliminary examination. First test color. Next, second one is we need to prepare a solution of this, that is in which solvent it will be soluble. We need to check that. And in order to check that, I take a clean test tube, take a pinch of this salt, and then first try to mix it in water. Okay. Now I have taken the salt, added water, I will shake it thoroughly. If it becomes clear like this, okay, it is transparent clear solution, it means that the mixture is soluble in water. So two things: first, under preliminary examination, color, whether it is colorless or it is colored. Okay, that's the first thing. Second one is solubility. So start with the solvent water, distilled water, and then try it in HCl and nitric acid. So in that order we need to check in which it is soluble. We need to conclude there only. Okay, so now I have concluded that it is soluble in water. That is the first thing. And then we will go to the second heading, that is detection of acid radicals. For that, I take this mixture in a small test tube. First thing we should know is the acid radicals are grouped under three headings. They are called as three groups: first group, second group, and third. Some acid radicals are present in first group, namely carbonate, bicarbonate, sulfite, thiosulfate, nitrite, etc. And there are some other groups, some other radicals in second group. We name them as chloride, bromide, nitrate, iodide, etc. Then the remaining, let us say for example sulfate, borate, phosphate, they are placed in third group. Okay, so we go by identifying the group first. Okay, let us now see whether this mixture has first group or not. Now what I do is, I take this and to this I add dilute hydrochloric acid. Okay, I have taken a pinch of the salt. Now I will add a small quantity of dilute hydrochloric acid. Okay, the moment I add hydrochloric acid, if there is some vigorous reaction, you will see some bubble formation, right? Some gas evolution. Like for example, if carbonate is present, there will be liberation of carbon dioxide, which we will say there will be some effervescence. And we don't see any kind of effervescence there. And in order to see the effervescence, we should not shake it. Just take the salt, add dilute HCl, see if there is effervescence. If there is effervescence, then first group is present. If there is no such reaction, then first group is absent. So this particular mixture which I have taken, the first group is absent. So I will write first group is absent. Now I will go to second group. For that I need to take a clean and dry test tube, take a pinch of the mixture. Okay, take a pinch of the mixture, and I must use a holder for this because I am going to use concentrated sulfuric acid. Concentrated sulfuric acid is corrosive, it can burn the skin. That's why I must hold it with a, let us say, test tube holder, and then I am going to add few drops of concentrated sulfuric acid. See, while adding sulfuric acid, your hand should be away from the acid. Okay, now you see, as soon as sulfuric acid is added, you can see there is some vigorous reaction, okay, indicating the evolution of some gas. And you know the gas, check the color of the gas inside this tube. Now I see it is colorless. Now if it is a colorless gas, then what I should do is, I must take a glass rod, okay, a glass rod, dip it in a solution of ammonium hydroxide and then bring it near the mouth of the test tube. Now you can see there some dense white fumes are coming. That is indication of the presence of chloride. See, the chloride salt reacts with sulfuric acid, liberates hydrogen chloride gas, which when comes in contact with ammonia gas forms ammonium chloride solid, and because of which you will see some dense white fumes here. It will appear cloudy, right? That is the formation of ammonium chloride. Okay, so that is, now we have come to an understanding that this mixture consists of chloride as the acid radical. One of the acid radicals, we need to find out one more. So we have identified one. So that is chloride. Now I keep this aside, go for a test to confirm this chloride radical. Now how to confirm this chloride radical? To confirm the chloride radical, now what I should do is, take a pinch of the salt. Say I will add a pinch of the salt to this, and I add a few crystals of potassium dichromate. See, potassium dichromate, almost in equal amount as the salt mixture. Now to this mixture I must add concentrated sulfuric acid. Now before the addition of sulfuric acid, what I must ensure is, I take another test tube, okay, I take another test tube, in that little water is taken, little water, very little, see, very little water, okay, very small quantity of water. Now I will add sulfuric acid to this mixture of salt and dichromate, okay. As soon as the two come in contact with each other, you know, there will be a vigorous reaction and you will see some colored gas getting liberated there, okay, and that color gas rises to the surface. Now what I am going to do is pass it into water. See, I am holding the two test tubes in this fashion. The gas that is liberated is called chromyl chloride with the formula CrO2Cl2. Now that is being collected in water, okay. Now let us say it is passing into the other test tube. I cover it immediately, shake it well. Now you can see the solution has turned yellow. Okay, if you want more, you can pass more amount of gas and see the color change. Okay, so you will see a yellow solution. Now this yellow solution is due to the liberation of chromyl chloride gas, which dissolves in water and forms chromic acid. Okay, and because of this you have a solution. Now this chromyl chloride gas, now that is collected in the test tube. If I treat this with, again I have to add 3 more chemicals. First I add few drops of ammonium hydroxide, and then I add few drops of acetic acid, okay, I add few drops of acetic acid, okay, just to make it weakly acidic, and then I add a small quantity of lead acetate. A solution of lead acetate I add. Can you see there? I get a yellow colored precipitate. Now this confirms that the salt has chloride. This is a confirmatory test for chloride and it is called chromyl chloride test. So the chromyl chloride is the gas liberated when a mixture of salt and potassium dichromate is treated with concentrated sulfuric acid. And that gas, when comes in contact with lead acetate, will give you a precipitate, yellow precipitate of lead chromate. This precipitate that is formed here is due to lead chromate. Okay. So that is one acid radical we have identified. Now we have completed. Now we need to find out another acid radical, and in order to do that, now what I do is, see, one more acid radical may be in the same group. For that what I do is, I take salt in a dry test tube, I hold it with a test tube holder. I add a few drops of sulfuric acid, and I have already shown it to you that this mixture has chloride, so there will be vigorous reaction. So that part is over for us, we don't need that. Now in the second group, let us say chloride means there is reaction and a colorless gas. There is one more radical called bromide. If bromide is there, there will be some yellow color formation inside the test tube. If iodide is there, it will become dark brown. So only colorless gas means only chloride is present. Bromide and iodide are absent. But there is one more radical which will not be shown under cold conditions, and in order to get that, what we must do is add a small piece of copper turnings, we often refer to it as a very small piece of it, just one single piece of copper turnings. Okay, now it is mixed with sulfuric acid and the salt mixture. Now I am going to heat it, and while heating, ensure that mouth of the test tube is away from anybody. It should not face any person, you or anybody in the lab. Okay, now you can see there, upon heating, some brown colored gas is being liberated. Did you see that? Some brown colored, reddish brown colored gas is being liberated. Okay, that wash inside the test tube, there is a slight yellow tinge, and you can see the color of the solution. The solution color is slowly changing to blue. Okay, so that is the indication of nitrate. And inside test tube, watch, there is some yellow tinge. Solution is blue in color. So the confirmatory test for nitrate is called brown ring test. And in order to do this, what I do is take a small quantity of salt, add little water so that it forms a solution. Okay, now this is the salt solution. I keep it here. I take another test tube. In this, I take a small quantity of ferrous sulfate. See, this is ferrous sulfate. In another test tube, a very small quantity. I add little water and make it a solution. This is ferrous sulfate solution. Okay, so this is ferrous sulfate solution, and this is salt solution. Now I mix them both. See, I am adding this ferrous sulfate into the salt solution. So ensure that you don't shake the mixture, keep it as it is. Okay, now again use the test tube holder. Okay, see, this is the mixture of ferrous sulfate and salt solution. Now I am adding to this concentrated sulfuric acid. Just observe how I am adding it. I am adding it drop wise along the sides of the test tube. Just 1 or 2 drops will do. Not more. Okay, now you can see there a brown ring is formed near the base. Can you see there? A brown ring is slowly forming, right? A brown colored ring. This is called as the brown ring test, and this brown ring indicates the formation of nitrate or confirms the presence of nitrate. Okay, so now we have confirmed both the acid radicals, chloride and nitrate, in the salt mixture. Okay, so this is the second part of the analysis. That means we don't know that the salt mixture has 2 acid radicals, chloride and nitrate. So now we will go to the basic radicals, and for basic radicals, what I need to do is first prepare a solution of the salt. See, you know already that, or I have already told you that this particular salt mixture which I have chosen is soluble in water. Okay, now what we normally do is prepare a large quantity of its solution, little more, like not large in sense, not very much. Take little more of the salt, see, little more of the salt. Okay, and then add little more of water. A bigger test tube I have chosen. So about half a test tube of water we can add, and shake it thoroughly so that it becomes a clear solution. It's a very clear solution. So now it is completely soluble. We know that the mixture is soluble in water. Now this solution is called as the original solution. So original solution of the salt mixture. Now this original solution should be used for identification of basic radicals. Okay, I'll keep it aside here. Now I mentioned that the basic radicals are divided into 6 different groups, right? Okay, 6 different groups. In the first group, we have a few basic radicals starting from lead, silver, mercury, etc. In the second group, we have radicals like copper, cadmium, bismuth, etc. In the third group, we have aluminium, chromium, iron, etc. In the fourth group, we have zinc, manganese, cobalt, nickel, etc. Fifth group, we have barium, calcium and strontium. And in the last 6th group, we have magnesium, sodium, potassium and ammonia. Okay, 4 radicals in the 6th group. Now out of this, ammonium is considered a non-interfering radical and we normally identify it in the beginning itself. Without taking that into the group, we have to identify it in the beginning itself. Now how do we do this? Now in order to test for ammonium, what I must do is take a pinch of the salt in a test tube, clean test tube. Okay. Now I should add sodium hydroxide to this. I am adding sodium hydroxide, NaOH. So salt mixed with sodium hydroxide. Okay. Now I am going to heat this gently. I am going to heat this gently. While heating, try to be careful. Don't allow the solution to bump out. Okay, now it is boiling. Some gas is slowly getting liberated. Now what we can do is try to smell the gas. Okay, don't take it too much close to you, little away, and try to smell the gas that is liberated. Okay, so try again. Try again. Okay, so now this salt, if it has ammonium ion, then here I will be able to smell ammonia gas. A smell of ammonia, a pungent smelling gas. See, generally we don't advise it that you should smell ammonia, but that's the best way to identify ammonium ion. So if you don't understand what smell you are getting here, take a solution of ammonium hydroxide, try to inhale the fumes gently and compare the smell with this. If the two match, that means it is ammonia. So if you get the smell of ammonia, it means that this salt contains ammonium ion. But I am not getting the smell of ammonia, that means ammonium is absent. Okay, so test for ammonium is over. That's all. We don't have to do anything. Like for example, there is one more test for ammonium called as the confirmatory test for ammonium. It should be performed only if the salt mixture has ammonium ion. As we have ammonium absent now, so we don't have to go to that confirmatory test for ammonium. Now what we should do is go to the 6 groups of basic radicals and see which 2 groups are present in the mixture. So we will start with the first group. So now what I do here is, when we are testing basic radicals, we have to ensure that the the tap water is removed completely from the test tubes that you use for testing. That's why after you wash, make it clean with distilled water. Okay, and only use those test tubes which are clean from tap water for testing basic radicals. Now I will do first. Okay, so I have taken the original solution. Now for the first group, I must add hydrochloric acid. This is hydrochloric acid, dilute hydrochloric acid. I am going to add a few drops of this into this. Okay, a few drops. Now, as there is no precipitate, see, it is clear, transparent, there is no solid that is formed inside. So that means that this particular salt mixture does not contain a basic radical in the first group. So first group is absent. In the sense, lead, silver, mercury, etc. are not present in the salt mixture. Now what I should do is, I must pass hydrogen sulfide gas into this. to go to the second group. Okay, see, this is the hydrogen sulfide which is made ready here. Now this hydrogen sulfide tube must be first cleaned with water, distilled water. Okay, and then dip it into your salt solution. Okay, then open this tap slowly. Okay, you will see some bubbles indicating the liberation of H2S. Now that H2S will be collected here. Now as soon as H2S goes into the solution, if there is a change again, formation of a precipitate, that means that second group is present, and we don't see any precipitate, that means second group is also absent in the salt mixture. So next we go to the third group. For that we need to clean the test tube again. See, we cannot use the same test tube for everything. But first and second group, what we can do is, I told you already, I have shown it to you. Take salt solution, add dilute HCl, precipitate, first group is present. No precipitate, don't discard that mixture of salt solution and HCl, directly pass H2S into that. So if you get a precipitate, second group is absent. Now we are going to the third group, and for that I am cleaning the test tube. Okay, so I am cleaning the test tube, I am washing it with water, rinsing it with distilled water, and then I will take a small quantity of the salt solution, that is the original solution which I have prepared. So now we have completed first and second groups of basic radicals. We will start with the third group. Now for the third group, I have taken the original solution. To this, I have to add a small quantity of ammonium chloride in the solid state. Okay, so ammonium chloride crystals I am adding. You can add a little more, no problem. Okay, now shake it thoroughly so that it becomes a clear solution. No crystals should remain inside the test tube. Should be completely soluble. Okay. Now to this, I must add few drops of ammonium hydroxide, and that too, see, while adding ammonium hydroxide, it is very important to ensure that you just add enough of ammonium hydroxide to make this solution alkaline. Okay. Now this solution will be slightly acidic, because most of the, let us say, inorganic salt mixtures contain chloride, sulfate or nitrate. So when you dissolve it in water, they form acids like HCl, H2SO4, HNO3, and the solution will be mostly acidic. Because of which the third group basic radical is not precipitated. So in order to precipitate that third group basic radical, we need to make it slightly basic, and that's what we do by adding a few drops of ammonium hydroxide. See, adding of ammonium hydroxide should be in drops. See, I have added just one drop. I'll mix it well. If you get a gelatinous precipitate, this indicates the presence of third group. So do you see any precipitate? No. So that means third group is absent. Now before you conclude third group is absent, ensure that this solution is basic. In order to ensure that, smell the solution. It should give you the smell of ammonia, then only it will be basic, otherwise not. If it is not smelling ammonia, you add one more drop of ammonium hydroxide. Again, mix it well, try to smell. No smell of ammonia, so I will add one more drop of ammonium hydroxide. Okay, one more drop, that's all. Again, mix it well. Now I am getting the smell of ammonia. So you can see there is no precipitate. Generally third group will appear as a gelatinous precipitate. There is no precipitate, so third group is also absent. So that is third group. Now to go to the next, that is fourth group, I should not discard the solution. Directly pass H2S into this. Okay. So in order to pass H2S, again I have told you earlier, this glass tube should be thoroughly cleaned in water. Okay, and then wash this tube because it may be contaminated. Okay, afterwards dip it in your solution. Okay, slightly open this tap and allow H2S to bubble into the solution. Okay, fine, that's done. So, see there is no precipitate. Thus, that means this mixture does not contain the fourth group radical also. So, I have to throw this solution and clean the test tube. I cannot carry the same. See, once you pass H2S, the same solution should not be carried to the next group. If you want to carry the same solution, then you must bubble out H2S and make it free from H2S and then only take it to the next group. Now anyway, I don't have to do that because up to the fourth group, this mixture does not contain any of the groups. Okay, that's why I can start with fresh original solution and go to the fifth group. Now in the fifth group, see, I have taken the original solution. I will have to repeat adding ammonium chloride the way I did it in third group. I can add little more, no problem. Okay, shake it well. Okay, so ammonium chloride should completely dissolve. Make it a clear solution. Right. After that, add ammonium hydroxide. I told earlier, you must add ammonium hydroxide drop by drop, just enough to smell ammonia. Mix it well. See if you get the smell of ammonia. Yes, so that is enough. There is no precipitate. Now, so this solution which is basic, I must add ammonium carbonate. Okay, now I am going to add ammonium carbonate, few drops. See, as soon as ammonium carbonate is added, there is a white precipitate. You can add little more of ammonium carbonate because you can ensure the complete precipitation of the fifth group basic radical in the salt mixture. You can add more, no problem. Okay, so now I have a white precipitate. This indicates the presence of fifth group. Okay, so this solution has a white precipitate indicating the presence of fifth group. Now, in order to identify which radical it is, in fifth group there are three basic radicals: barium, calcium and strontium. So out of these three, your mixture may contain only one or more than that. Okay, now as I know the mixture has any one radical in fifth group, now what I do here is I must centrifuge this. Okay, take the centrifugate which is free from fifth group and the residue which is free from the above group, that is sixth group, and separate them so that the residue can be used for testing the fifth group basic radical and the centrifugate can be used for testing the sixth group basic radical. So I must centrifuge this. I am going to use a hand centrifuge. Okay, I have kept in these tubes because there are two tubes, right? In one I keep that precipitate, in the other I should not keep it empty, I should keep one more tube with little water. Okay, now I will rotate this until the precipitate settles down completely. You can even use an electrical centrifuge. It will do. You will not have to do this job of rotating if you are using an electric centrifuge. Okay. Now you want to do finish it fast, so I have used a hand centrifuge. Okay. Okay. You can see the residue is at the bottom and on the side of the test tube. Now I must separate the residue and the centrifugate. The centrifugate is the clear solution. Residue is that is sticking to the wall of the test tube. Now I will try to slowly transfer the clear solution into another test tube. The idea behind this centrifugation is to ensure that the radical in the fifth group is not carried to the sixth group, because in the sixth group, if that fifth group radical is present, then it will interfere in the identification of the radical. Okay, see, you can see this solution has precipitate This is clear. So when I go to the sixth group, this precipitate part should not be carried. If it is carried to the sixth group, then generally what happens is this radical will interfere in the identification of the sixth group radical. So now I have taken a clear solution, that is centrifugate from fifth group. Now I keep it aside. Okay. Now I take the residue which was separated in the fifth group. Now this residue should be used for identification of fifth group. Now what I should do is first, now what I am doing is identification of fifth group basic radical. For that I need to add a small quantity of acetic acid to this so that the residue completely dissolves. Okay, the residue fully dissolves. Now the residue will be nothing but, let us say, carbonate of the basic radical in fifth group. Now this carbonate comes in contact with acetic acid and forms the respective acetate, liberating carbon dioxide. So now I have got a clear solution. Now I must use this solution for checking the basic radical in the fifth group. Now there are three radicals. I take a small quantity of this solution which is dissolved in acetic acid. Okay, and to this I add a small quantity of potassium chromate. See, this is potassium chromate, a yellow solution. I am going to add this potassium chromate. Okay, you can see there is no precipitate, it is only a colored solution. So that means barium is absent. Okay, I discard that. Now again I have a little more of the solution. I take again a small quantity of this solution in another test tube. Add to this ammonium sulfate. Okay, ammonium sulfate. See, ammonium sulfate, and you can see there is a small change in its appearance. You can see this is the fifth group centrifugate dissolved in acetic acid. This one has let us say some white tinge, indicating that the another radical in fifth group, that is strontium, is present here. Okay, so maybe you can, if you don't get a precipitate, you can gently heat it. The precipitate often thickens upon heating. You can see that become very thick. So this indicates the presence of strontium in the solid. Now, so strontium is present. Now I can confirm this strontium by again centrifuging this and performing the flame test. Okay, I am going to centrifuge that. Separate the residue from the solution. Take that residue which is in very small quantity and perform a flame test. How do you perform the flame test? You know, for performing the flame test, we need to make use of a platinum wire. The residue has gone to the sides. I can discard the clear solution and retain only the residue part in the test tube. So the residue is here. Okay. Now, platinum wire is required for performing the flame test. Now what I do here is, as we don't have platinum wire, what we normally do is we take a small stick, okay, a broomstick, right, a small stick of that. Okay. Now to this residue, I need to add a drop of concentrated HCl. So I add a drop of HCl concentrated. Convert that residue into a paste, okay, paste-like mass. Then take the paste with the glass rod, okay, and bring it near the non-luminous part of the flame. Did you see that crimson red color? See, as soon as I take it near, you will see that red, crimson red color near that blue part. Okay? Okay. So that is the confirmation of strontium. Okay? So one basic radical is confirmed. Now I must take the centrifugate which is separated in the fifth group and go to the next group. So next group is sixth group. So because I have identified only one basic radical, I need one more. And to identify the other radical, what I should do is, first I check for magnesium. I must take a clean test tube. See this solution, what I have, I will divide it into two parts. Take a small quantity of this, because the volume is very small. I will take a very small quantity of this, and to this I am going to add diammonium hydrogen phosphate. So diammonium hydrogen phosphate, okay, and a few drops of ammonium hydroxide. Okay, see, there is no precipitate. So this indicates that the salt mixture does not contain magnesium. So magnesium is absent. Now, there are two more radicals in the sixth group, potassium and sodium. I need to check for potassium and sodium using this solution only. I have very small quantity. What I do is, I divide it into two parts. Take very small quantity, use it for sodium, and after that I do the test for potassium. Okay? Actually, if you have a larger volume of this, what we normally do is, it is evaporated on a China dish, then the residue that is obtained after evaporation is dissolved in distilled water. Okay? And what the point in doing this is to make it more concentrated. Okay? So you have a large volume, let us say the solution which is obtained as centrifugate in the fifth group. What you do is evaporate it, take a China dish, put the whole solution in that, evaporate it, right? You get a small amount of residue and very little water, right? Earlier the volume was, let us say, full test tube. Now you reduce it to, let us say, 1/3. Okay? By adding a small quantity of water to the China dish, you dissolve the residue. Okay, that solution, divide it into three parts. Take one part, test for magnesium, and the remaining use for sodium and potassium. Okay, now I have very small quantity. I will not be able to do the process of the operation. What I do here is, I just divide it into two parts. Take small quantity in one and small quantity in another. First, I need to test for sodium. What I should do is, I add potassium pyroantimonate. I add a compound called potassium pyroantimonate. Okay. Now, after the addition of potassium pyroantimonate, what I must do is, I must scratch the sides of the test tube, outside of the test tube with a glass rod. See, outside of the test tube should be thoroughly scratched like this. Okay. And generally, the sodium salts are highly soluble in water, so that's why they don't appear. So we need to do the process of seeding by scratching the sides of the test tube. Okay, create a little amount of heat by rubbing the two glass surfaces so that the precipitate will appear. So now you can see there is no precipitate. This means sodium is not there in the salt. Now I have a small quantity of the solution, right, to test for potassium. So what I need is picric acid. So I am going to add a small quantity of picric acid in this solution. Okay. So if potassium is present, I can keep on shaking it for some time. See, it is slowly turning turbid. I am getting a yellow precipitate. So that confirms potassium. So this particular mixture has the second acid basic radical, that is potassium. Okay, you can see it will normally come very easily. Okay, so that is the identification of second basic radical. Now again, I must centrifuge this, separate the residue and go for the flame test. Okay, you can see the residue is separated. It is separated at the bottom. I throw the solution. Okay, add a drop of concentrated HCl. Make it into a paste. Okay, you can just see it has formed a base now. Take a small broomstick, okay, dip this in the paste, right, and then bring it near the flame. You will see a color, okay, some color. Do not keep this stick for a long time near the flame. It will start burning. Don't allow it to burn. Just hold it and remove. You can see as and when I hold it, you see some color there. That is the lilac color. We call it as lilac. The same lilac, if I try to visualize through a blue glass, it appears violet. Because blue glass will filter some of the colors there and give you a pure violet color. Okay. Now what I get there is lilac colored flame. So that confirms potassium. Right. So I hope we have understood how a mixture of two simple salts is analyzed. Okay, so finally we put a result there. This particular mixture, what I have chosen, consists of two acid radicals. One is chloride and nitrate, both belong to the second group. Two basic radicals, strontium and potassium. Strontium is in fifth group, potassium is in sixth. Okay, now I write this on the board. You need to write some chemical reactions for the basic radicals. See, this we will say the report. The acid radicals present in the salt are chloride and nitrate. Okay, so this is how we write them. Cl minus is chloride and O3 minus is nitrate. Then basic radicals present in the salt mixture, strontium Sr2 plus and potassium K. Okay, so these are the radicals in the salt mixture. Then for the basic radicals that we have confirmed, we need to write chemical reactions. Let us say, for example, for strontium, the group test can be written. For example, you get a precipitate in the fifth group upon addition of ammonium carbonate. Now, I take the strontium ion, treat it with ammonium carbonate, right? The precipitate I get is white in color and it is SrCO3, strontium carbonate. And for balancing, I will write 2 ammonium ions. And similarly for potassium, I have to write the reaction with picric acid. Now picric acid is a compound with this structure, see, OH, NO2 here, NO2 here and NO2. So picric acid is 2,4,6 trinitrophenol. You can see here, this is a phenolic group there. Okay, so 2,4,6 trinitrophenol. Now, when treated with potassium ion, what does happen there? It gives you a yellow precipitate, and that yellow precipitate will be like this. So this OH group will separate as O minus and H plus, and that H plus will be occupied by K plus ion. Okay, and the remaining remains as it is. Remaining, you will have to retain as it is. So this is called as potassium picrate plus this H that has been replaced is the other one, H plus. So these are the chemical reactions which you need to practice for the same lecture. Okay, thank you for good listening.